The Pentagon wants to review whether women belong in combat, and Senator Mazie Hirono just called it what it really is, an attack on women.
Thank you, Senator Banks. Senator Hirono.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll thank all of you for being here to respond to our questions. This is for the entire panel. As you all know, Secretary Hegseth has called for a review of the effectiveness of women in combat roles. And up front, I'll just say that it is really, I would say this is an attack on women to I'll call for this kind of a review, but there you have it. And so I think that he is laying the groundwork to reverse the policy allowing women to serve in combat arms positions, and also undermines the sacrifice of thousands of female service members who have already met the rigorous gender-neutral standards and have served in combat with distinction. And all you have to do is look at Senator Duckworth to know that women can very strongly be in these kinds of roles. So I want to ask you, for all of you, do you believe the mere fact of women being in these combat arms units lowers standards? We can start from my left and go down the line.
Senator, thanks for the question. Good to see you again. I've seen no data that supports that there's any lowering of standards or that there's lowering of the readiness of units with those females in those units.
So answer is no.
Correct. Yes, ma'am.
Senator, great to see you. No, at this time, I'm not seeing anything that leads me to believe there's an issue with meeting the standard or affecting readiness.
Senator, no.
Senator, no.
Senator, from my perspective, I've served with some of the best warfighters that the world has ever known in the United States Air Force. Some of them happen to be men, some of them happen to be women. Absolutely not. I've not seen any erosion.
Senator, from the Space Force perspective, we have not seen any erosion in the readiness based on any of the administration's positions.
Again, down the line, do you agree that every service member, regardless of gender, should be permitted to serve in any role, including in the combat arms, if they meet the established standards? We'll go down the line again. Yes or no?
Yes, Senator, if they meet the standards.
Yes, Senator, it's about standards.
Yes, Senator.
Yes, Senator.
Yes, Senator.
Yes, Senator. And all the specialties on the enlisted side and officer side within the Space Force are all open to men and women.
When you have a secretary calling for this kind of research, it does tend to be, I would say, create a sense of divisiveness. So I'm planning to introduce a bill that codifies the current DoD policy that allows women to serve in combat arms positions as long as they meet the required standards. And that I hope my colleagues on both sides of the aisle will join me. And I must say that especially in a time when recruitment goals are really challenging to meet, except possibly for Air Force and Space Force, I think that we need to make sure that everyone who wants to serve our country, and so men and women and others alike, that includes LGBTQ and others, that they should have the opportunity to do so. So this one is very specific, and I want to ask all of you again. The frequent permanent reallocations place a significant financial and emotional strain on military families, and I know you're aware of that. And then to help reduce that burden, I work to include language in the fiscal year 25 NDAA to authorize reimbursement for shipping and storing 2 privately owned vehicles during overseas moves. And it makes a difference. A lot of our military families have more than one vehicle because guess what? Maybe they need both to get to, to work, et cetera. Okay. So the military just pays for one, and that is a huge burden on families to have to find the storage for their second vehicle, meaning they could be thousands of dollars out of pocket if they want to have that second vehicle with them. And my staff has heard from DoD that the services are responsible for making any updates to allow for the reimbursement of 2 vehicles. So I want to ask each of the service people, what steps are you taking to advocate for the important change that would save our service members and their families potentially thousands of dollars? So are you all working to enable the service members to have two vehicles stored?
Senator, it's my understanding we're waiting for a JTR change, which is controlled by the department. And once that changes, then, I know the Navy will work to figure out how to make that a reality for our Navy sailors.
So do you, since you're waiting for somebody else to determine whether you can do that, but I mean, as a sort of a living, just to address some of the real needs of the service members, would you all agree that it would be a good thing to respond to this particular need?
Senator,
Yes, no?
yes, and as
Okay.
the two vehicles, the two vehicles, ma'am, if I could, we're pushing it and we want that to be available, but the JTR portion, what I would add is that if all the services immediately start allowing for two vehicles to go to any location, it will likely break every one of our budgets. So I would just caution.
Yeah, I realize that there's a cost factor here, but I think this is an example of addressing a need that has been brought to our attention, and that there should be an adequate response to that, because I don't think this is a matter of frivolously wanting two vehicles, et cetera. And so when it's brought to our attention, it's just an example. And there are other examples of how the quality of life of our service members can be improved, and this is one of them. So thank you for whatever you all can do to make this happen. Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
What happened in this hearing was more than just another tense exchange. It was a warning sign about where this administration wants to take the U.S. military. When Senator Mazie Hirono confronted Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth over his push to review the effectiveness of women in combat roles, she cut straight through the political noise and named it for what it is: a deliberate effort to roll back decades of progress for women who have already proven themselves under fire.
Hegseth's so-called review isn't neutral. It isn't academic, and it isn't about standards. Every single military leader sitting at that table confirmed on the record that women meeting gender-neutral standards do not weaken readiness, do not lower standards, and do not harm unit effectiveness. Not one of them backed Hegseth's premise. Not one.
And that's the point. This isn't about data, it's about ideology. It's about reopening a debate that was already settled by the sacrifices of thousands of women who served, and in many cases bled, for this country. As Hirono reminded everyone, you don't need a theoretical review when you have living proof like Tammy Duckworth, a combat veteran who lost her legs serving this nation, and still stands as one of the strongest voices in the Senate. At a time when military recruitment is already struggling, this administration is sending a chilling message that women, LGBTQ service members, and anyone who doesn't fit a narrow ideological mold may no longer be welcome. That kind of signal doesn't strengthen the armed forces, it weakens them. It undermines morale, fuels division, and tells capable Americans that their service is conditional.